Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wednesday Night Symbaroum here on Telling Tales. We do atmospheric type role playing stuff on the internet for you here on Twitch and on YouTube as well. Speaking of which, let's get that promo out of the way before I start bringing on the crew and doing recap stuff. If you check down below, there's a bunch of links to Twitch, links to YouTube. You're watching this on one, please do check out the other. There's also links to our social media, our Patreon, our Discord, if those are the kind of things you like to enjoy. We currently run 2 weekly campaigns here on Twitch. Mondays is Vason with Johnny, and Wednesdays is Symbaroum with me. We also run monthly one-shots, lots of different systems, lots of different games, lots of different tales to tell. There's a bunch of those on our YouTube if you want to go check them out. The next one won't be now until it's looking like the 1st of April, which will be Pierre and a couple of other lovely folks revisiting Dungeon World. There should be another one-shot happening in April as well. We haven't locked that one down yet, but yeah, lots to look forward to. Okay, that was an extremely efficient intro from me, unusually. So let's start bringing on people and talking about Symbaroum. First off, we'll do our kind of meta recap, where we talk about sort of the overall story so far, and then we'll start bringing on the rest of the crew and talking about what happened last week. But first off, let's bring on Mike. Mike plays Father Anton, Theurg of Prios, Holy Man, Swinger of Flails, and Roller of Terrible Dice. Mike, tell us what the story of the Witch Hammer so far is all about.
The group were in Carvosti, got wind of an explorer who is possibly kind of like making steps towards like the finding the mythical city of Symbar. We had 3 possible avenues to explore. The first of which we have recently set out to achieve, which was go to New Earthmore in East Davakar and speak to a girl there called Elida, who associated with the explorer Elmendra.
Elmendra, yep.
Yeah, sorry, too many names that sound the same. Which, after a bit of fighting, we have achieved. Quest marker checkbox ticked. Yeah, and she basically said reluctantly that, like, yeah, there are ways into the lost city of Symbar, and explains a little bit about her relationship with Elmendra. And the party are now leaving New Earthmore and thinking about what to do next.
I think with the conversation with the leader, she did say that there was presumably hidden a way to Symbar, but the way she was talking about was the ways into Carvosti itself under the plateau,
Right.
where the path to Symbar apparently can be found, not physically, but in map or information form. Okay, let's start bringing on some people to talk about the events of last week. First up, let's bring on Chris. Chris is the player of Steo, resident curmudgeon and wielder of spears. How are you, Chris, and how is Steo feeling about the events of Witch Hammer so far?
Steo, I know I've said this a few times. Steo is still kind of wondering what we're supposed to be doing here. Kind of mulling over this over the last week, I think came to the conclusion that he's becoming frustrated with the lack of any kind of orders or contact from the Iron Pact as to how the kind of geopolitic, how we can actually make a positive impact on the geopolitic. And without that framing, without orders, the infantryman is a bit lost.
Absolutely. And speaking of lost, the group was kind of lost to a certain degree as to what to do next after their success at New Earthmore. United with the other treasure hunter, Degesto, your first actions were to basically pick the battlefield clean from the previous evening to try and get what you could from the corpses of the raiding party and its leader, the barbarian warlord Fundiba. And after that, you reunited with the Gesto and basically decided that your path seemed to lead you down the River Malgamore together, regardless of whether you were splitting up at that point or not. So that's where you set off. Let's now bring on John. And John is the player of Sir Arindar, the last scion of House Dar, idealistic young noble with a lovely cat called Ferrin, who I believe, John, you've just bought as an actual boon in the game.
Yes, correct.
So that means you get Ferrin's actual stat block and to roll for him in the same way that one of our other players does for their sort of squire, in a way. So, and how is Arindar feeling about everything in the Witchhammer so far?
I think he's feeling fine. Slightly confused, but much like Steo, he doesn't know who's supposed to be telling him what to do or where to go. But as far as he's concerned, there is currently straightforward, like moral. Like, he is doing this to try and save Ilmendra because Crueljaw asked him to. And that is apparently good enough justification for Arindar to go wandering off into the forest like a madman.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was in the forest. Great at these segues, guys.
Fantastic. Well done.
When you were halfway down the River Malgamore, retreating to the outpost near the Sun Temple in the middle of Davakar, where you could strike north to find your second targeted location on the Trail of Elmendra. You stopped overnight on the banks of the river and encountered something rather unusual, a chrysalis or pupa. That's at first you didn't know what it was. It was just this horrible writhing form, and then it burst open to reveal what appeared to be a newly born ogre. Something of a surprise, since none of you have any idea that the ogres came out of chrysalises in the forest. Although this did seem to make some sense after you thought about how many ogres wander out of the forest with no capacity for memory or language, but still unusual. Let's bring on the next player. It's Stephen. Stephen plays Elindra, former Templar novice turned sellsword, and I think definitely the most hack in half first, talk later of the party, arguably.
She's direct.
direct. And how is Elindra feeling about the events of the Witchhammer to this point?
So I think a little lost as well. I think the initial motivation was the same as Aaron's. The primary thing was to find Elmendra. I think she's beginning to doubt that that's going to happen. I'm not quite sure that she believes that we're going to find Symbar either. So I think at this point she's probably just hoping for some kind of moment where we hit pay dirt.
Some kind of material reward.
I think she's scrabbling around for upsides to the situation.
Yeah, and I think so far, like, Elindra's definitely the one of the party who's seen the least amount of material rewards for like venturing into the forest. I don't think she's ever found forest treasure or whatever, as it were, right?
Yeah, the rest of the party had previous adventures and had, some, I guess, modest wealth prior to this point. Elindra has not had that. Elindra's not been paid, not really.
No. And after the incident with the ogre, the party retreated further down the river, down to the west, and found themselves fairly safely and securely at the Sun Temple's small outpost on the river. About sort of a day's walk south of the actual Sun Temple itself. You arrived, got some information from the local ranger, who I believe mentioned that the Black Cloaks who you encountered before had kind of left the ruins of Far Maroon looking a little bit worse for wear. You also managed to encounter another pack of treasure hunters led by an ogre called Cleaver, who seemed to be spoiling for a fight might be an extreme term, but certainly apparently capable of very sudden violence and none too pleased to see you. And let's there's a little bit more in the recap, but let's bring on our final player, Sam, who plays Ascarai, our changeling archer and scout, and main DPS machine, I think it's safe to say.
Kill stealer.
Yeah, Sam, how's Ascarai feeling about all this?
I think Ascarai, he's maybe a little bit more comfortable in the forest for a long period of time, but is equally a bit like, is this Alindra thing ever going to pan out? Like, are we ever going to find Alindra? Like, she's...
Well, you've already found Alindra. She's one of your player characters.
Almendra. Sorry.
Almendra. I know. I know.
Yeah. Ascarai, I think, is beginning to doubt that Almendra is even alive at this point, but is probably... I think Ascarai is thinking that maybe the Symbar thing is on the cards, and is kind of excited, kind of thinking like maybe we could actually find some kind of way to Symbar or something like that. But it's keeping it quite close to the chest because he knows that at the very least Stio is not on board with the idea of actually going to Symbar.
I do like the idea that the party is kind of losing its faith in the quest for Elmendra, probably at least partly because beyond just a promise made to an ogre, a drunken ogre none of you knew particularly well, there's no real driving force behind it. And I love the idea that, like, if we talk about things that the party have concealed from each other, what we have is essentially, sort of 40% of the party have this like bubbling over motivation of let's find the way to Symbar so we can make sure no one else finds the way to Symbar, and 40% have this kind of like slowly rising, well, if there is something in this Symbar thing, as there seems to be from all the people interested, maybe we could go there and make some money off that. And then there's another 20% who's just Father Anton, who's just kind of like generally well-meaning and trying to push forward the righteousness of certain elements of the Church of Prios, and also giving off something of a like just wandering along with the rest, dum-de-dum kind of vibe.
Well, Anton wants to get paid, son. This is becoming
he's
increasingly important as my Thala's whittled down to
sure.
There's
that as well.
Wasn't it Ascarai and Anton who put in the large majority of our explorers' license fees? So maybe we're slightly more invested in like, where's the cash coming from to pay us back?
Getting that money back. And with that, obviously, there's a lot of money in political turmoil. So maybe if you play your cards right, you can make some money. Since the last thing that happened last week was the arrival at the same outpost as you of Father Pyramai and all the other sun priests and novices from the Sun Temple on Karvosti, where it was revealed by, I can see you chanting, Chris, where it was revealed by fan favorite character Beremo that you're all just pathetic slaves to in-joke trends. That's all I'm saying. Where it was revealed that the growing schism between the Sun Knights, the Templars, and the Sun Church had finally reached a head, with the Templars seceding from the Sun Church in entirety, and the Templars at Karvosti casting out the Sun Priests. And Pyramai has clearly chosen to lead them east to the Sun Temple in Karvosti, which is quite a big thing to have happened, really. And that's exactly where we're going to pick up in the moments immediately following that. I don't see any need whatsoever to move on from that, because it feels like there are more questions maybe to be asked. So we'll pick up exactly there.
So But how did this happen? Did they take the Sun Temple by force? Did they threaten violence?
They certainly had their swords drawn. No one was harmed. No one dared fight back. And I think the High Chieftain and the Wrathguard just wanted to keep the peace.
Well, at least no blood was shed.
Some pilgrims who were insisted on leaving as well, and a couple of the other Theurgs, they went straight to the south to Thistlehold. Piramai chose to lead us on a pilgrimage east here, and Prius knows I wish I hadn't listened to him.
It may be that no temple is safe now. Thistlehold may be this may be all across the land.
It may be, but in some places the Sun Church and the Black Cloaks will still have weight of numbers, or I cannot imagine Night Pitch or any of the dukes or the Queen allowing the Templars to kick the church out of the temples down there.
Has every Templar turned?
I don't know. Elisa Beta certainly has.
They seem
And
to
her
have gone.
father.
They seem to have gone very quickly from like a small group of separatists to a very, very large group of separatists.
Well, perhaps it was not a small group all along. I don't know. He sort of looks at your tabard a little hesitantly.
I saw no sign of this when I was part of the Order.
What is Piramai's plan for you all now? I mean, this is hardly a safe haven.
I don't know. But he's losing loyalty by the day. If you look over to the larger group behind Beremo, you can see that most of them are kind of drifting over to stand kind of near where Beremo is, and Piramai is sort of waving his arms around and shouting at the novices at the dock. But there's only maybe 3 or 4 priests and novices who are sort of stood near him, vaguely paying attention to what he's saying, and the rest are kind of like drifting towards the ramshackle tavern, and don't look terribly interested in. You don't know if they don't want to go further with Piramai or whether they're just tired of him right now, but they don't seem to be holding the head of their former Sun Temple in particular esteem right now.
Do you think this place is safe for you? This seems like one of the places most dependent on Templars to protect it this deep in the forest.
And there are Templars there. Piramai's thinking is that they will not have heard this message yet.
But when they do, what will you do?
I don't know. And the more I walked on this path here, the more I thought that the very fact that they don't know yet means that we are traveling into a corner. But the Ordo Magica are at the Sun Temple as well. Perhaps they can hold the Templars at bay if they decide to. I don't know.
You think they've got a dog in that fight?
I don't know. I hope that the Ordo Magica would side with the Curia.
I would hope so as well, but just think and act very carefully. There may be some other way to do this to persuade Piramai that going back down the Malgamor and trying Thistlehold is a sensible option. I don't know. We don't have enough information.
You're welcome to try. For myself, I'm going to go in there and have a drink. And then I suppose we'll make camp and maybe decide what we will do in the morning.
Well,
Where are you traveling, Father Anton?
potentially further north.
Into
The
the
district-
forest.
that was my plan, but this news, this highly unpleasant news, is making me rethink. And maybe, I don't know, I want to help. Let tonight rest, and tomorrow maybe we can speak to Pyramai in numbers. Try to convince him of a different approach.
But if you are staying, I would welcome the aid. I will speak to you later. He wanders off into the tavern.
What does it say?
What did you say?
Not even
I
the
think you were
church is
all-
part of the church anymore.
I think at some point, Father Anton, you and I may need to have a conversation about faith that we've been putting off for some time.
I think you may be right.
So we have an unanswered question. Are we going onward to Carvosti, or I think we decided that while we're in the area and given 2 other parties have come back from that place alive, we may as well go and take a look at the haunted wasteland.
Partially alive.
So,
But
tactically, what if we were to perhaps earn a little bit of coin by escorting some wayward priest to the Sun Temple and assisting in the holding of that Sun Temple for a short period against whatever forces are probably hot on their heels?
we're going that way anyway. And
Use the money.
could use the money, and it seems to me to be the right thing to do.
If
The
we're
guest-
going north, we're stopping at the Sun Temple. Like
It would be foolish not to, almost certainly. De Gesto scratches his thatch of a beard and says, "Going to Carvosti to recruit is looking less and less favourable by the moment, it seems. Who knows what situation I'll find there in the pilgrim camp."
We, from the rumors that we'd heard, we feared that there might be political turmoil there, that it might not be as safe as it was when we all last saw it.
All right. If you're still interested in teaming up, we'll go to Symbaroum with you.
I see no disagreement here.
Good. There was talk of camping overnight. I see no reason not to strike out now. 2 groups have already been there. Do we want to waste a day? I am aware I was saying I would waste a couple of weeks on reinforcing, but the day here serves some purpose, does it not?
What time of day is it, Matt?
I can't remember whether I mentioned it last time. Let's say it's early afternoon.
And how, could we get to the temple tonight?
You've been told it's about a day's travel, so you assume that also incorporates like a night's camping. So you should get there tomorrow afternoon if you set off north now.
I'm not keen on traveling through an unknown part of the forest to a place I've not seen before in the dark. I think we set off early in the morning, convince as many of the priests as possible of our little side gig, and
no, it will. Either way, you're spending a night. Like it's 24 hours travel incorporating camping.
oh,
If you see what I mean. So either way, you're going to be camping out in the forest.
Is it fair to say that Askrai
You've been doing that for weeks, though.
Is it fair to say Askrai has probably gone to the Sun Temple before into like bringing people here, or maybe not?
I think you may have guided people to this outpost,
but not all the way up.
You probably haven't been up to the Sun Temple. Shall we say that?
Okay, yeah.
Or would you like me to roll? And I'll give you a 1 in 6 chance of having been to the Sun Temple before.
You can roll.
That roll.
Seems fun.
So close, but no. No, you've brought people here quite a lot, probably pilgrim groups, but No, you've never actually, because once they're here, this place has like the path between has a lot of rangers, Templars, novices, auto travel, like probably especially more so a couple of years ago than now.
And I think it's also the case that they're not meant to go with changelings. I think is maybe part of the.
There's certainly, I would say, the distrust towards changelings probably is increased by the amount of piety a person has, because changelings are seen as, lots of people literally think you're an elf.
Yeah.
So
Antom's fine with you.
Well, Antom's much lower level bigot than many other Ambrians,
So, counterpoint to setting off right now. If we set off tomorrow, it's a full day's walk. We'll be setting off at the same time and in the same phase as the other parties who've left, so we'll find it easier to find places where there have been camps before on this trail.
But we waste some time.
It's
Everything we've seen so far on this journey to find Almendra has shown us that we're against the clock in a million different ways. There's so many groups out here looking for Almendra. I don't know if we can.
If you rush in the forest, you're dead. I just think it's worth taking a little extra care. A day. Look, 2 groups have already seen this place. We're already picking the bones.
Normally,
let's.
I would agree, but the journey from this pier to the Sun Temple must be one of the most well-traveled parts of the forest that exists. I think, novices make that journey regularly.
Just so I understand the argument, because I'm not really following Steo's argument on this. What extra care is taken by setting off later?
Because one would assume that groups traveling to the Sun Temple would overnight and set off in the morning and make the 24-hour walk. That means they'd be striking camp halfway along the trail at the same point as we'd be striking camp. So we're more likely to find used or at least somewhat safer areas where camping is a bit less of a. I
can kind of see the rationale there, but I definitely think it is an assumption that other groups would have set off first thing in the morning. But I now understand the rationale.
Anyway, that's my piece. Whatever.
Surely we go whenever the priests want to go.
Yeah, I think we can earn some money helping these priests out. More to the point, we can also defend. I don't know. Do I even have a dog in the race of which particular faction of the church is? One faction's tried to kill me, the other hasn't yet. Despite all my best efforts.
What I would say is that these priests definitely don't look like they have any possessions on them, or money, or anything. They look quite ragged. Some of them look really in need of a decent meal. Most of the priests who were kind of drifting away from Pyramai have now gone into the tavern or are standing around it. Pyramai and what look like 3, there's kind of a priest and 2 novices. He is rambling and ranting at them in a sort of slightly lower tone than he used to give his sermons in. He looks to be literally about to leave.
I guess these people, if they have no money, are not getting fed or watered here. They're not going to get fed or watered till they get to the temple.
You know what? Give me a cunning roll. Anyone who ponders whether that might be true or not.
Sure, that's a pass.
This is a Sun Church outpost. It's quite likely that members of the church get free food, drink, and board. What board there is.
Anton, why don't you just find out when, take your pick, either Pyramai or Baramo is going, and just say that we'll escort them.
I mean,
One
Beremo
of it.
seemed to be having serious second thoughts about going to the Sun Temple. So
Yeah, I think I will try and speak to Piramai.
Okay.
About this. Just understand his intentions and his thought process a little bit more.
Sure. I'm assuming that means going up to him here.
Yes.
You do so, and almost immediately he sort of rounds on you and says, "You, yes, you, Father Anton. I know you. I have spoken with you before. You left Karvosti. You left us there to be manhandled by those Sun Knight brutes. What is your business out here in this forest?"
My business is my own, and I take issue with what you're accusing me of there.
There was no accusation, merely a statement of facts. The agents of Prios must be protected, Father Anton. You and your companions, you have wandered far from the flock. Far indeed. We are setting off to the Sun Temple to the north.
I have my own reasons, and I am no Templar, and I am no Black Cloak, and I do not command my companions to do my bidding.
No, but you are a Theurg of Prios, and it is your duty to protect his sacred agents. I am striking out to the Sun Temple.
I agree with you, Father Piramai. It is your duty to protect your fellow agents. So I must ask, why, in Prios' name, have you brought them here, so far away from safety?
How close are you to him?
I'm probably quite up in his grill.
Okay, he's going to strike you. Just like an open-handed slap. But not like... He's quite a large guy, and he's going to, like, fully, like, across the jaw. Bang! Slap you quite hard. Probably not enough that I'm going to roll for... No, I think I will roll a bit for damage. But because I think it's something where he could certainly have, like, bruised you or even potentially dislocated your jaw. Does anyone know what an unarmed strike damage is? Is it D4?
I think
it's
D4.
D4?
Sounds right.
Okay, so that would be 2 from I can't really roll armor, doesn't feel right, does it? But you know what?
It's a sucker punch.
It's a sucker punch. Armor doesn't feel right. But you know what? He's not properly hitting you. So I'm going to roll a d6 and see whether it's 0, 1, or 2 toughness. How about that? Okay, it's 1. It's like you're going to wake up with a bruise on the side of your face. It's a not inconsiderable kind of open-handed slap across your face.
Do we see this happen?
Oh, Christ, yeah. Everyone sees it. Everyone nearby sees it.
Astra is going to draw his sword immediately.
I'm going to jump between the two Theurgs.
Sure. Piramai takes kind of a step back from Ascarai. Who else? Ascarai said he drew his sword, and I saw some general nodding.
Very much taking a step forward and putting the sword out.
Well, Piramai takes a step back, and the kind of novices and priest with him kind of back off very quickly and sort of hold their hands in the air. And in the kind of stillness, like, Anton, how do you react physically? I don't think he's going to say
he's a big guy
before you have time to speak. He's a big guy.
Yeah, I'm probably taking like a couple of steps back and also like, touching
like
my face.
Your face, yeah. There's a brief pause of a moment and his eyes flicker to Ascarai's blade and Elindra's blade, and he just kind of takes one step back and then drops to his knees on the ground and raises his arms up and says, "Oh, Prios, behold your martyred son!"
I will, at this point, sort of turn around to Ascarai and Elindra and anyone else and just give the calm down motion. There's no need for further violence.
Piramai seems to have kind of basically erupted into a sermon about the martyrdom of Prios's agents on Earth. Are you bothering with this man anymore, or are you going to try and press the point?
He's absolutely not getting the satisfaction of martyrdom as far as I'm concerned.
I think I will make one final point before turning and walking away, which is going to be now is not the time for prayer. Now is the time to lead your flock. And I will just turn and walk away.
His eyes kind of move. He stops talking for a second. His eyes move down, and he like reaches out an arm in a sort of almost like accusatory gesture, and says, "This is the truth, Father Anton. I have revealed it to you. Now come, your warriors. Guard this agent of Prios as he strikes out towards the Sun Temple to the north in search of these perfidious Templars."
I will continue to walk away, and I think we as a group need to have a bit of a conversation about what our plan is now.
He's carrying on ranting.
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave him to do that.
Sure. Yeah.
And I guess turn to everyone else and ask, well, what now? Because this man is in no fit state to lead those men, and I do not believe that we can leave them in his hands.
If this flock needs leadership, Anton, maybe it needs to be yours. Maybe you take whoever wants to come to the temple, tell them we're going now, and leave that one in the dirt.
I don't know that he will remain here if we go. I think his intention is to go to the Sun Temple, and I think that he would follow or join us in our expedition up there. But I do not believe him to be in a place where he can make a sound decision for the good of his men. So that is why I think we need to, encourage the other priests to come with us now. And I know that time is of the essence. I just ask that we give them time to rest for an hour, to have a good meal, and then we strike out.
Counterpoint. These people, much as the quest to unlock the infinite wealth of the ruined city of Symbar is fun for all involved, but these people aren't built or equipped for the forest. Is the right thing to do not to get them safely back to Thistlehold?
The church to the north is the safest place within miles of here.
And they came this far, so I assume they've got a chance for another day. It wasn't from his leadership, so...
If you want to lead them there, Anton, I will go with you. You've sacrificed a lot for our cause, and we should do the same for you and yours. I think the ones who want to go will make it. It's a journey done regularly by priests and novices. From here to the Sun Temple is well traveled.
So the plan's the same as it was. So the plan's the same as it was, but now we're not getting paid.
Now we're not getting paid
much by these.
And there's one priest in this flock that may tag along with us, but is not under my protection.
Father Anton, do you know the current exchange rate between good deeds and Thaler?
That payment comes at the very end, Steo. I think we'll go to speak to Beramo, and
sure. As soon as you enter the tavern, Beramo kind of sees you and walks over and kind of takes you by the arm and takes you over to one side, like stealing a glance at Cleaver as he does so, who is looking at all these kind of novices and priests with an almost hungry expression on his face. Father Anton, we've reached our conclusions already. Paramai is leading us on a maddened crusade of his own invention. If we'd had our heads on us at Karvosti, we would have struck straight south with the others. We're going to return. We'll rest up here for a few days. We'll eat our fill. There are plenty of supplies. We'll take some of those supplies with us. Hopefully, we'll even meet some individuals coming back the other way, and we can join their party. But it wasn't too bad along the river. We all of us made it. So,
if that is your plan, then I wish you well. Of course, our plan is to head north. We are going to the Sun Temple today. I know you are tired, but anyone is welcome to join us if they wish. The Sun Temple represents the closest safe haven for you, although
we understand.
I do not know.
We understand that, but I think we would all rather be in Ambrian lands.
I understand.
I don't want to be in that Sun Temple when the Templars there get word.
I understand. If you travel back, double and triple check before you make camp.
There
will.
Are
many dangers.
We will. Do not worry for us, Father Anton. Prios watches over us. As he watches over you and your friends, he kind of clasps your forearm and bids you good travels. Oh, sorry. Did anyone out there think you were going to get a Beramo companion? Not on my watch.
You monster.
I would like to take a moment to have a critical look at the sort of belongings that, for example, Paramai might be carrying with him, and seeing if anyone is carrying anything hammer-shaped.
Literally none of them are carrying anything.
Right.
You see a couple of them have in kind of like their long robe pockets, like you see one of them kind of gnawing on some jerky. That's about it. A couple of them seem to have flasks. They are not carrying anything.
Jeez, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, I suppose they seem to have left their relics behind them.
And it was undoubtedly, by this logic, a very cold journey. Although, if any of them have kind of mystical powers, at least Theurgs would be able to summon some heat and warmth among them. So maybe that is how they have made it without starting to lose toes and stuff. Yeah, but that's Beramo and the saner individuals are seem to be heading off on their own. As you kind of emerge out from the tavern, you see Paramai and his three followers. You literally see them walking off the path to the north. Those of you who stayed outside, moment when it became apparent that Anton wasn't going to return and offer your services as protection, Paramai gave a kind of like short homily on the faithlessness of the supposedly faithful, and just stood up and started walking north. His companions look at least temporarily loyal, but somewhat exhausted. Paramai, oddly, seems to be a say what you want about the guy. He's got stamina.
One more drink before we head off?
Maybe a drink and a night's sleep?
Now there's a reason to wait.
I'm not going to be beaten to the Sentinel by that guy.
I don't know. I'd say we let him get enough of a head start. Maybe he'll suck all the poison out of the forest on his way. And
somehow for me,
that
that giant guy staring at us as we drink doesn't fill me with the comfort I need for a day's travel. I think I'd rather just get out of here and
look. I think the guess those lads could do with another night's sleep. But I am thoroughly of the camp. Let's set off in the morning. Doubly so now that monstrosity's ahead of us.
I mean, you don't have to drink in the tavern. You can set up camp. They have a little. I said they had a little enclosure, right, where people can set up camps and stuff. You just take your drinks there and set up. You can't get bored from the tavern; it's too small. Like they maybe have a back room for some of the priests, but you're camping outside tonight, so you might as well. Yeah.
Cool. So what's the consensus? Is the consensus that we're staying overnight just out of spite to let Pyramide get ahead of us, or are we going now?
I think there's a couple of reasons to stay after overnight, but it has not yet really come to a vote yet.
Well, you know what? Let's do that because
Yeah.
we have been talking for half an hour now on when we set off exactly. And I'm not sure in the grand scheme of thing it matters. So let's settle it with a vote. Elindra has, of course, 2 votes. Unless I feel like Revelia particularly objects to what Elindra would say. But generally, she'll just vote how Elindra
I think
votes.
she will probably follow Elindra's lead. And Pyramide has pissed off Elindra enough that Elindra will spend the night here out of spite, given half a chance.
Sure. So, hands up for staying the night, please. Okay, so that's what's happening then, in other words. Okay, you set up camp in the enclosure. Is there anything else we want to do? Conversations we want to have or anything like that? Don't feel you have to. I just want to give you the opportunity as always.
Astra, not a conversation, but Astra will be looking very carefully at when Cleaver leaves and where he goes. If he goes down the river, if he camps here, if he goes north, what he does.
And you know what? DeGesto is doing that as well and spends most of the next couple of hours leaning on the rough fence post at the edge of the enclosure, watching the tavern. About an hour and a half after Pyramide leaves, you see Cleaver and his companions leave the tavern. Kind of Cleaver glares over at where you all are in the enclosure one last time, and then they walk off to the south. DeGesto takes a couple of paces out down the road and watches, and then as after a couple of minutes, he walks back in and nods and says, "Looks like they left."
For the best. Never good to have that kind of group around. Bad for business.
I think we should still post a watch.
I agree, especially with the news of these Templars. Probably they are only interested in the priests in the temple, but if they come up the river, who knows?
Don't hurt none. He nudges one of his fortune hunters awake with his foot and says, "Your first watch." Okay, is there anything else overnight? Are we happy to wake up bright-eyed in the morning, ready for our travel to the Sun Temple? Okay. You wake up. You maybe get some kind of like drink and food from the tavern before you strike out. Beramo and the ranger whose name you never caught both wish you safe travels, and you all strike out to go. Oh, Chris, yes.
Can without role playing it too complexly, can I maybe offer maybe a shilling or two to the ranger to keep an eye on my hammer, and kind of leave the newly acquired hammer there, so we're not, because we shouldn't be marching with it based on what you were saying earlier.
Yeah, it's definitely not an easily marchable thing. He kind of looks it over for a second and says, "How safe is it?"
Oh, it's benign. It's just not easy to lift.
He has like a little sort of lean-to against the back of the tavern, and the two of you like rest it over to there and sort of lean it up against the wall. He grabs a couple of blankets and sort of throws it over it and says, couple of shillings now, couple of shillings when you come back.
Yeah, if I come back alive, I'll hand over 2 shillings.
All right, then.
Thanks.
He takes that from you. Okay. you start striking off to the north quite relatively early after the sun has risen. It is a very well-worn track through the forest. It doesn't feel especially safe in terms of, you're not it's not like the trip. I'd say that the road between Thistlehold and Carvosty felt safer in that there were a lot of cart tracks, and you passed quite a few people on the way. But even with that, this path definitely seems traversed often. Occasionally, you kind of see Ambrian detritus at the sides of the path, and after a few hours, you also spot in like a tiny clearing just to the east of the path. You see the worn wooden marker of a some kind of Ambrian grave over there, presumably where the ashes of someone are buried. I am actually happy for you to essentially move through to the evening's camping, unless there's anything you particularly want to do during the day. Unless you're pushing yourselves, you won't catch up with Father Pyramai. So
I think I maybe would take the opportunity to speak to Elindra just for a minute. Just ask for a moment of your time, Elindra, just
of course,
to talk about the recent events in Carvosty. I do find myself troubled by what this means, and forgive me for choosing you to talk about this with, but it's you understand perhaps better than most.
I'd hope to speak to you as well. I'm in a strange place with it. Long before any of this happened, the church decided that I wasn't fit for purpose. And I've never understood why. And part of the reason that I've come here is to try to find out. I don't know if I'm anywhere near to answers. I don't know what to make of these Knights of the Dying Sun. Their ideas are heretical, but I also have a hard time believing the dogma of the church. Prios is not the only god. Prios always was one of a pantheon who became elevated amongst Ambrians, but we've seen other things out there. I don't know if Prios is dead. That's maybe a step too far for me. I wonder where you are in all of this, because although it's happened in a very different way, you sometimes have the look of somebody who has been left behind by the church as well, or finds himself in a place where your faith and your sense of right and wrong doesn't match up with the church. I don't know if that's accurate.
I think you put that very astutely, and I find myself conflicted because I do not believe I know that Prios lives, but I believe that the institution of our temple is dying. The latest news we had points to that. And as someone who sits outside of that, it is difficult to deal with. And I feel, that the institution is easily corrupted by malevolent forces within it. The people who, wish to use the power of the church to further their own goals.
The church
it doesn't sit comfortable. It doesn't sit right with me.
The church is only as divine as the people within it, within its ranks.
And there are still good people within the church. Desaber.
I don't doubt it.
Affirmed my faith more than she destroyed it.
It is. I like the idea that for your group, it is difficult to hold on to your monotheistic notions when you've literally seen a god resurrected in front of your eyes.
Yeah.
Well, something referred to as a god, certainly. Whether you consider the ox to be a god or not, who knows? Certainly something greater than you.
Yeah.
Elendra, I do not know where you sit with your faith now, to what extent you believe, but I know that the Prios is watching over and is lending us his strength. And should you ever doubt that, I am always here to talk with you about it. And should I be able to offer anything to repair the damage that was done when you were forced out of the church, then likewise, I am here to talk.
I appreciate that, Father. I've seen some things in my travels in the world that make me reframe and readjust my faith, but fundamentally, it was the church that left me. It wasn't me that left the church. So my faith remains such as it is, despite them. I feel like the best that we can do now is to try to keep hold of a sense of what is right and what is wrong. And I think that our sense of right and wrong may put us at odds with the church more in future. But all we can do is serve Prios in the best way that we can, right?
We just follow his guidance, follow his light. Yeah. I'll extend a warm hand on the shoulder.
Prios teeth, it's cold. DeGesto, I pictured this conversation happening kind of around the campfire, maybe at the start of the evening's camping, and DeGesto kind of stomps over and kind of like drops himself onto the log that you're both sitting on, which leads it to kind of tilt manically slightly in his direction. And he kind of glances over, realizing what he's just said, and says, "Oh, sorry, Father. I'll say my apologies in my next prayer, shall I?"
There's a sliding scale of blasphemy, DeGesto.
I've certainly said worse. He proffers his flask to you both.
I'll drink.
So will I.
As always, potent more than it is quality, but certainly not the worst. It's not moonshine or anything. It's just, fairly cheap stuff. Okay. Anything else that we want to cover on the journey to the Sun Temple? Other than that bit of quality role playing, I find very much interesting.
Heart to heart, yeah, it's good.
Okay. In that case, the night passes without any incident, and you manage to kind of rouse yourselves and start your journey again as the dawn comes up. And by your kind of, what you've been told, you should be quite close to the Sun Temple here. And indeed, as you start walking down that well-worn track again, can everyone give me a vigilance roll, please? Okay, so everyone, is that a 20, Stephen? Yeah. Okay. Everyone. Okay, then you two don't hear anything at all. Everyone who didn't completely flub hears kind of human noises ahead of them, right? The sound of people going about some kind of business. Those of you who succeeded, which I think was Antom and I'm assuming Ascarai.
Yep.
How about did Theo get it or? No. So Anton and Askarai, you hear you can recognize the sounds enough to have a good guess that it is the sounds of concerted excavation. You hear like scraping, like the sounds you might hear from like a pick, a mattock, like someone is working with stone, with rock, with wood, stuff like that. It's the kind of sounds you'd hear. It's the sounds, very similar to the sounds you heard rolling off the hillside in Cylindra's Hope, yeah? When all the people there were trying to excavate their way into the center of the hill with great results.
Are we still quite far from the Sun Temple, as far as we know?
You think you're quite close to the Sun Temple, and these noises, like, you think it's probably noises from the Sun Temple.
Okay.
Because if it's 24 hours travel, and you basically got up when it was dawn and started off, you should reach there within like an hour, you'd imagine. And that's around this time. You carry on kind of like moving forwards. You see kind of a fresh wave of energy cross Degesto and his fortune hunters, as they're kind of, the Sun Temple is definitely a milestone towards Farah Maroon. But as you get closer and these sounds get louder, loud enough even for Alindra and Arendar to hear, you definitely hear, you have a bit of a flashback to the raiding camp as you hear what sound like loud cries and the sound of something, of some conflict erupting ahead of you. And it doesn't sound far now. It sounds like maybe 200 or 300 meters ahead of you.
So we'll look to the group and say, could the Templars have made it here already? What's some news for the Templars here?
Did you want to go and scout, Askarai?
I'm happy to go and take a look, but I think we should hurry, all of us.
Yeah.
Perhaps Pyramai has simply incited everyone to violence.
As long as it's against him, I have no problem with that.
Let's get eyes on it and stay out of sight until we know what it is.
So a general hurrying and an extra special hurrying from Askarai to kind of scout ahead. Okay. Askarai, for a start, could you give me a discreet roll, please? No modifiers, that's fine.
Okay, I need a 13. I rolled an 18, so I don't succeed.
Okay. That's fine. You basically stumble across the scene in front of you before you know that you're out in the open, if that makes sense. You don't know that, as we established, you haven't been to the Sun Temple. You basically round what you thought was just a slight curve in the path, and ahead of you is the Sun Temple ruin. And what you can see is this. What you'd say is a kind of smallish ruin for Davakar, certainly not hugely large, with no surviving walls or levels above ground. There looks to be like a stone floor, but even from this moderate distance, you can see it's kind of widely pitted and looks very unsound. Next to it, in a wide cleared space, and clear, like, looks to have been cleared enough that tree stumps are still there, but the trees and the underbrush aren't. There are 3 rough but sturdy longhouses. And in the open ground between those lies what seems to be the smouldering remains of a large troll, similar to the one fought alongside Thunderber. 2 Templars are heaving their long blades from being caught in its tough flesh and hide. Another is being tended to on the ground nearby by a group of Sun Temple novices, and an Ordo mage is poking at the body with 1 foot. His hands have small but noticeable curls of smoke drifting up from them.
Okay. I think that's right. Even realizing he's been spotted would probably just head back to the group. He might like wave hello.
There was a Templar kind of basically, he looked like he was running over to where the fight was with the troll, and then it slowed down because the troll had been kind of burnt and cut down. And he's kind of like halfway over there, and he was the one who's like he's just across from where you were, and he kind of sees you and kind of pauses for a second, and you can see he's not sheathing his sword,
Okay.
until like you raise your hand in greeting, and he sort of nods very cautiously, looking at and raises his other hand towards you, and then kind of like sheathes his sword.
If he's that close to me, I think Asgrai would like raise his empty hands and say, "We heard the same commotion. We were just coming to see what was going on. I have a few companions just behind, but we mean no harm. We're here to visit the Sun Temple and head further north. Where did this troll come from? Are there more?"
She says, "Don't look to be right now."
Is this common here? I thought this was meant to be quite a protected place. Relatively safe.
There have been a few trolls in the last weeks, starting to become troublesome. 3 dead. Even one of my brothers caught unawares. It's Davokar. You must know that, changeling. It's probably long enough that that the others are starting to arrive on the scene.
Okay. I'm sorry to hear about your companions. As you say, you're deep into Davokar relatively. Must be difficult out here.
So you say your business is further north?
That's right. We have no we have a priest with us and no quarrels with the temple, but we're here to head further into Davokar.
Right. Well, a popular destination this spring, it seems.
So we've had.
If you're not pilgrims, you're more of a distraction than welcome guests. But we turn none away. You can camp over there by the tree line if you need to.
Thank you. Will be no trouble.
See that you're not. You hear, like, inside one of the long houses, kind of raised voices starting to arise across the clearing. The Templar glances over and shakes her head, and turns to you again and says, "Over there by the tree line."
Do any of these raised voices sound like Pyramai?
Make a vigilant roll.
Okay.
With a +2, I'd say.
All right, I need an 18 or a 9, so I make it.
One of them is absolutely Pyramai, yes. Yeah, she points to the tree line and says, "There's no law stopping any of you who are Prios-fearing enough to take a look at things, but I'd encourage you stay to yourselves."
Very well. I'm sure we will. As I say, we have a priest, so I'm sure we'll be very interested to see what there is to see here. But apologies for the pilgrim who arrived most recently. We've encountered him before, and I do not envy you the task of greeting him.
She doesn't look very interested in engaging you in any kind of friendly banter, and just turns her back on you and walks away.
Asgard will relay this to the group that we're kind of allowed to camp over there in the tree line, and say that we're allowed to take a look around, and the pyramid's probably in the in one of those log houses.
Now that the inhabitants have kind of, like, you see some people kind of leaving the longhouses, like looking around to see if it's safe, and they kind of emerge, and some people look at you slightly curiously, but most are just moving back towards the ruin. There seem to be quite a lot of people here, and quite a few Templars among them. All of them are, they're being Templars. They're looking stern and threatening, and standing near priests. There are quite a lot of members of the clergy here, many priests, many novices. There's also more than a small scattering of Ordo Magica representatives by the look of it. You see several men and women walking around with kind of the long greyish robes of the Ordo Magica.
This is like an hour after we set off in the morning. Is that right? Or like, okay, so early in the day.
Yeah.
If anyone is suggesting we continue on further north without at least taking a look at this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see the temple and do some actual sightseeing, I'm going to go completely spare.
We can look at the temple, but I don't think we need to camp here tonight. It doesn't even seem particularly safe, especially if these... Look how many... Askar will say, well away from the Templars and everybody. If these Templars hear of what's gone on, this is not even a safe place to be camped. I don't think we're particularly friends of the new order of Templars. I agree we should take a look around. I'm sure Anton and Elindra, all of you probably have interest in what's here, but there's no reason to waste a day here at this place just to camp.
I wonder how much of a catalyst our loud companion will be to whatever disruption is harbored within the hearts of the Templars.
I actually agree with Ascarai on this, because my assumption is that if we can do what we need to do in Famaroon, we will be coming back this way anyway. And like if we then decide that we can afford the time, that is when to explore this place further. As much as I would like to be here, like, time is of the essence, and Father Pyramid being here also makes me less inclined to stay.
Right, I'll sightsee quickly then.
You are assuming that we will be welcome on our way back, Father Anton, but I can't disagree with the principle.
We're not very welcome now.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's another reason to hurry, if anything.
Perhaps
we can get back before the Templar news arrives. If Famaroon is a few days travel, maybe we can get back before all hell breaks loose here, and get out of here safely. If we waste a day here, it's another day for this news to arrive, and who knows what we'll find on the way back through.
Let's take an hour or two, then we'll get an early lunch, then we'll move on. How about that? I don't know what there is here that's going to take that long to explore. I don't think we're getting much conversation.
DeGesto kind of grunts and says, if nothing else, we can maybe try and find out a good route to Famaroon.
If we can find somebody friendly enough to ask, we should do that.
Are you at least kind of putting your packs down by the tree line and kind of making sure that at any one point someone's watching over them? Reveal the NPCs minus DeGesto are probably happy to watch over these things. As you do so and you kind of like dump everything down, you hear a kind of slamming noise, and Father Pyramid kind of storms out of the one longhouse with a face like a thundercloud, and kind of stamps his way over to the ruin. You can see, by the way, that people going into the ruin, as I said, like it has like a floor, but it looks all pitted and very unsafe. But you can see people walking over to kind of the western end, the kind of shortest end of this ruin, and they all seem to kind of like grab and hold onto maybe ropes or something along those lines and kind of descend down below the earth, and a lot of them are doing that. There's a number of Templars kind of still standing guard up at the top, and a couple of novices as well. And you see the mage, who evidently had kind of breathed flame over the troll, is kind of like sat on a stump near one of the longhouses. He's got kind of like some kind of Davakar fruit that probably none of you but Ascarai recognize. He's chewing on it thoughtfully and looking around. And he definitely shoots a curious glance over at your group, but doesn't try and look like he's curious, but doesn't do a very good job of hiding it.
That's our friendly talking to person. I will go over and do my best to look friendly. Thanks, Chris.
He's a kind of a youngish man dressed in kind of Ordo Magica adept robes. He sort of straightens up a bit as you walk over and says, "Good morning."
Good morning. So,
You arrived a few minutes too late.
I gather there was some excitement. Does that happen a lot around here?
More and more every week at the moment.
It's Davokar, I suppose. What brings you out here? This is further into the forest than I'm used to seeing the Ordo Magica.
This is a prized and valued site for the knowledge seekers and truth gatherers of the fabled Ordo Magica, of whom I happen to be an adept. He leans back against the longhouse and dangles his legs off the stump in quite a louche fashion.
I can see, and what a honourable and noble and storied organisation it is.
Absolutely, I tell myself that every time I have to wash the smell of burnt troll flesh out of my nostrils.
I suppose we all have our challenges in life.
Mm-hmm.
So what's so interesting about this site? I see lots of people going into the ground, but I suppose I was expecting an Ambrian built sun temple. And this seems to be something else.
Is that a trick question? You surely have heard of the wondrous sun temple, the center of worship of Prios in ancient Symbaroum.
Have I heard of this, Matt?
You definitely have heard of the Sun Temple in Davokar, because it was quite a famed discovery by the Templars, who kind of cleared the ruins.
Okay, it's a Sun Temple that essentially predates Ambria.
Yes.
Yeah.
By apparently quite some way. It is also where some, I don't know, you may or may not have heard of some tablets with some prophecy on, and they were found here. So yeah, or rumored to have been found here. So yeah,
Elindra's going to do her best to not let on that she knows that information.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I'd heard something about this place. I had no preconceived notion of what it was, and that there seems to be none of it left above ground.
No, it's shit. It's a hole in the ground.
Right. What's down there?
You want to see?
Kind of. Can we just go? Is that allowed?
Oh, you can go with me. I am the extremely influential and important Ordo Magica adept, Domagoj Arviara.
Domagoj Arviara. Oh, I'm Elindra.
If anyone is curious, and don't look for this in the books because I made it up because I quite like having this kind of convention. R is the prefix some noble houses use to signify that someone with that surname is either adopted by the family or is a bastard, but still considered noble. And House Viara is, of course, the house that has a great deal of influence, both with the Templars and in Davokar, as in the Viara outpost where you visited to try to find Bartho.
He's trying to play off the surname, but doesn't know or care that the R part of that kind of undermines his claim somewhat.
You get the impression that he quite enjoys that it does. He's definitely, in all this, he's definitely coming across as if he doesn't believe a word he's saying.
Sure. The R stands for roguish good looks.
Yeah, you think he's trying to be charming rather than actively being an arrogant asshole.
Yeah.
Whether he is being charming or not is entirely up to you, of course.
Cool. Elindra is entirely happy to play along and pretend to be impressed at this man. Yeah, so kind of looking around at the others and saying, our esteemed host here is offering us a chance to peer into this temple's secrets. Who's coming?
Oh, I love poking a temple, mate.
Oh God,
Come on this way. We don't want to miss it.
it's a very different kind of campaign. Yeah, so he kind of Domagoy stands up and gives a kind of florid bow to you all, and kind of glances over at Anton and he says, "They'll like you."
How far down will we be going, and how many hours would it take to see?
My dear priest, I will have you in and out of there within half an hour.
Then I would gladly take the opportunity to go and visit.
You've never seen Steele look happier that he's finally getting to do some sightseeing.
I talk a great deal of nonsense, Sir Knight, but I was not wrong about one thing. It is a shit hole in the ground. He kind of wheels on his heel and starts somewhat languorously walking towards the ruin.
Very excited.
I assume we are following him.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and maybe asking him for some other information while we're
Go for it.
over.
Absolutely. What are you asking about?
I think the obvious thing to say is that we do plan to strike out further north. We do not know this area well, and we gather that the route to our destination has historically not been so well travelled. Thorough Maroon, I'm sure you are familiar with people asking about it. May you point us in the direction of which way to go?
You know, I wasn't familiar with that until about a month ago. And now it seems everyone is going there. Why is that? Why are you going there?
The usual rumors of ancient treasure.
Well, there's been plenty of people following that trail. Are you going to poke further along these lines?
Yeah, I mean, I want directions of where it is that we're going. So, yeah.
Sure. Why don't you give me a persuasive roll, please, Father Anton? And it can. You know what? I just want. What is your persuasive?
I think it's 11, but my PDF viewer has just crashed. So just give me a second. It is 10, sorry.
Okay. I just want you to roll persuasive and tell me what you got, because there's a few doing, and I don't want to make you roll 5 times, you know what I mean? So like, you just tell me what you got and I'll tell you the bits that you got out of it.
Can I
12? So I missed by 2.
Can I add that when I see that Anton is trying to sort of press him for information, Elindra with her persuasive 7, if it's all right, is going to jump in and like attempt to just outrageously flirt with this guy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't usually like people to roll for the same thing.
Okay,
but like, fair. Yeah, you make a decent case. So why don't you give me a roll? Especially because your persuasive is so low, and it amuses me the thought of Elindra trying to flirt with someone.
Yeah, that's a 19. So
yeah. If anything, his attention seems to be diverted to Anton now as perhaps a more articulate conversational companion. So you rolled 12, did you?
Yeah.
I'll take that as a yes, because it is. So, okay. Yeah, you he kind of looks slightly kind of sidelong at you and says, "It's a fairly straightforward journey, as far as I know. I haven't studied much about it. There's a little bit of a trail out from the north of here, and then you're out in the forest. You'll come to a swamp, circle round it, and come up Symbaroum from the north. It's on the north side of the swamp. You don't want to cross the swamp. That's all I know. And you know, fortune hunters and black cloaks came through asking the same thing.
Yeah. And did they come back the same way?
They did. A little worse for wear. You good with those weapons of yours?
The rest of my group are.
That's good. Feels like they'll need them. Okay. Down the rope ladders. He kind of chucks the kind of core of the fruit to one side and indicates a series of quite worn but quite very sturdy looking rope ladders leading down into what slightly oddly, like, now that you're flush, you can see, like, obviously there's this stone floor, and past that you literally can't see anything. It's just darkness. Whether that indicates kind of like that there's stuff kind of somehow preventing light passing in, like a covering just beyond your view, or whether it's really deep or something, you don't know, but it just looks like black holes down into the ground.
Head down. Hope for the best. Hope someone's going to light it up at some point.
Can't be as bad as the sinkhole, can it?
Hope none of you are scared of climbing into holes in the ground.
We've got some experience.
Yeah, I will actually like have a snorting laugh at that point.
It's not the worst hole we've climbed down in search of a god.
So, stop it. So, you all clamber onto the rope ladders and start making your way down. Whoever's on the one with the Gesto, it definitely creaks a bit alarmingly as he makes his way down below you. As soon as you're past kind of the surface, your eyes start to adjust a bit, and you see that it's actually not particularly deep. Maybe around 20, 25 feet down. And the ruin below seems preserved much better than the above floor, like the walls and another floor and so on and so forth are still here. In fact, let me describe some of this to you. You can see various work parties scattered around the area. It's completely impossible to descend. You're not particularly trying to be unnoticed, I don't think, but it's definitely impossible to descend unnoticed by them. Although while you can see people moving around, and some people have like torches and lanterns and the like, seeing details at distance seems to be oddly difficult. The light down here is soft and dingy as it falls beneath the broken flooring, and it seems quite at odds with the bright spring day above. Almost as if you're descending into like an entirely interior space, just lit only by kind of very soft sunlight and lanterns, and the entire thing has like a haze through it of like a great deal of dust and other kind of like microscopic fragments of stuff kind of floating in the air in the kind of vague pools of light that fall from above. Most of those working groups are composed of the three different factions you've seen. But at the center of the sunken level is kind of a more noticeable, smaller group of mages working keenly in silence at some sort of shallow trench dug in the forest detritus. Standing over them is a tall, older mage with a solid wooden staff and white hair tied back in a long braid. As you all reach the floor of the Sun Temple, he will turn and look at your group coolly, and then at Domagoy. His lips purse and eyes narrow. Then he shakes his head softly in dismissal and turns back to the excavation. You can also see Pyramai sat on a large displaced rock, shaking his head and grumbling to himself. And that's what it looks like. There are imagine more people around, though. Not necessarily in that view, but like there's definitely way more work groups. You'd estimate there's probably about 30 people down here. Domagoj kind of like reaches the bottom and turns around and says, still in that kind of quite cocky voice, but a bit more hushed than above ground. Well, there we go. The wonders of the fabled Sun Temple of Prios. Glory of Symbar. What do you think?
Definitely.
As ruins go, it's not terribly impressive.
Is there much like actual kind of Prios looking symbolism on the walls, on the pillars, or
what you can see, the only things you can really see that look to be distinct in any way are the various statues, which you can kind of see on that image that are kind of lining the walls. They all seem to show tall, powerful figures, crowned or backed by various circular or disc-like designs. They're kind of varied in how much damage they seem to have taken over the years. Certainly with a more concerted walk around this space, you could take in more detail. But just standing where you are, other than the fact that maybe those statues are kind of Prios-like, although it has to be said, Ascarai, you're not used to there being statues of Prios.
Okay.
Probably the older ones of you, Steo can almost certainly remember. And now this is interesting because I'm not sure in the timeline. Steo was possibly born when Prios was just kind of foremost among the gods. And perhaps the shift to kind of monotheism happened when he was quite young. But any of you who can remember Ambria definitely remember there being more things like statues of Prios around and images, whereas now the church almost exclusively relies on just the symbol of the sun.
So comparatively speaking, by church terms, there's been if it turned to monotheism and not having statues, sort of when Ambria became a thing, we're talking about the last 20 years, right? Like it's.
Sorry, I think Matt meant Alberator. So
yeah. Sorry, those of you who remember Alberator. So if we want a distinct, like without double checking the timeline, here is how I think it happened. So the last 20 or so years, 30 years of Alberator was consumed in the vicious sorcery-driven war against the Dark Lords. And early on in this war was the drive towards a more aggressive, warlike kind of avatar of Prios as recognized by the general mass of people of Alberator. And during that kind of shift in point of view, the Sun Church really kind of like took the lead in the war against the Dark Lord, and the other gods were kind of who were already kind of like far less worshipped than Prios, sort of took a backseat and eventually became viewed as heretical.
Yeah.
So you're really like, in terms of history, you're relatively close to the adoption of Prios as a single monotheistic god of the Ambrians.
Yeah.
But it still's before you were born.
Yeah. But
all
old folks might remember a time when
absolutely.
there were other gods and when Prios had a face, and now neither of those things are true.
Steo probably remembers from when he was a child people occasionally wearing symbols of other gods.
Do these statues look the same? Do they look like they're depictions of the same figure?
Well, now, if you want to know that, you'll definitely have to kind of go around the space and take a much closer look at them, which I assume we're kind of doing anyway as we kind of wander around.
Yeah.
Absolutely touristing, yeah.
Okay.
I think Steo is quite interested in having a little nosy into that trench.
Sure, the central one.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, let's say that. So Elindra is going and looking at these statues. Steo's going to look at the central trench, and let's go through. Hands up if you're going with Steo. Nope. Hands up if you're going with Alindra. Okay, that's everyone else then. So just Steo wandering on his own. And you know what? Degesto will go with you as well. Why not? He cares more about things that mages are digging at that might be valuable than he does about statues. So, but let's deal with those statues first as you kind of walk around the space. You draw the occasional slightly curious glance from people working in their own areas, but they're also clearly used to random people kind of finding themselves in the Sun Temple to a certain degree. You also see as you're walking around, it's very clear that generally finds and artifacts have been removed from here and stored somewhere elsewhere. You see a few pieces of some kind of mosaic being removed. The pieces being removed don't show anything that you can see, but they are just individual pieces. And the only real thing that really marks this place out in any way now is these various statues. There's a couple of them. Yeah, let's have a couple of rolls, please. All of you can roll vigilance, and I'd say that's a -3. And Anton, you can roll cunning if that's better for you. And if you roll cunning, also because this is directly related to your character background, you can add +5. Yeah. So who made their vigilant rolls?
Yeah, I passed.
Okay.
Nope.
Anyone who makes their vigilant rolls notices a couple of things. Firstly, that at least 2 of the statues seem to have a female form. And that the disc-like designs, kind of backing or crowning them, have quite a lot of variety between them. Some seem to have edges and patterning reminiscent of flames, others not so much. As for your cunning roll, Anton, what you do perceive is, because you are familiar with like older representations of Prios, you will say that despite the things you've noticed that made you go, Prios seems to stretch for some of these, all of them are, the way they're built and the way they're laid out definitely seem very reminiscent of old statues of Prios, who is typically depicted as like a large, powerful form backed by like a flaming disc, or kind of crowned or backed by a flaming disc. So they are undoubtedly very, very similar, but there's some aspects of them that make you think that definitely not all of these are Prios. If any of them could be said to be.
Okay.
These are different. Kings, queens, other gods.
Maybe there's just a bunch of Priuses.
Now, that is dangerous talk.
I'm
fairness,
talking about the beliefs of the ancient people in
the ancient
Davakar.
people of Symbaroum worshipped Prios as we do, and that is why we can safely inherit their lands. I thought everyone knew that. I'll be fair. There is more than these statues, and well, you see the mosaic. Before they removed it all, it was a rather impressive blazing sun, and other objects have been found. I'm not entirely skeptical. I can see how it is easy to be, given what's left.
I'm not doubting that this was a sun temple. I was just remarking on the variation of the depictions. Ellen's just going to stop talking before she gets thrown out for heresy.
This is centuries old, am I right?
Millennia.
seems to me entirely reasonable that manifestations of Prios might change over that time. The core belief remains the same.
Oh, you have a scholar's mind, Father.
What do they do with all the like? Where are they going to take this mosaic? What do they do with the artifacts they found?
The mosaic is on its way to Temple Wall, of course. Many of the artifacts, likewise, or to the Ordo Magica in Indaros for study. And then, once all that is done, it will be restored into a shining beacon of Prios in the darkness of Davakar. At the moment, they're starting to erect a smaller, more modest sun temple just to the side of the ruins, but in a number of years' time, they're looking to raise this place up, and I'm sure some kind of town will arise around it if they don't all get killed first.
A new temple, a restored temple in a town, once this area of Davakar is made safe, of course.
Bring enough people here and anything can be made safe.
It's amazing the things that can be achieved with faith, isn't it?
No one thought Thistlehold would be possible for years. Yet here we are. He kind of knocks a bit of stone along the floor, which kind of rattles along, and a kind of Theurg nearby, like brushing down a section of tumbled rock, kind of glances at him in irritation.
It is beautiful in its own way, the history and the scale of that history.
It is, Father, but I implore you to spend 6 months down here, and the beauty will wear off. Let's cut to the center of the room where Stio and DeGesto have approached the trench. Are you kind of engaging that tall mage in any way, or are you just kind of observing silently?
I'm going to take a peek in to see if I can recognize anything.
Sure. Give me a vigilant roll.
Okay, so what's the modifier?
Nothing.
Okay, then that is exactly enough, because my vigilant
Okay.
is 9, but I'm on -1.
Okay. Basically, what they seem to be digging, you kind of look up and see that there is a large hole in the floor directly above. It's essentially a massive pile of rubble and earth and petrified wood and other such tough substances that the Ordo Magica adepts seem to be digging down into with really some care, kind of removing each layer of topsoil, like slice by slice. And there is also a novice kind of perched on the side of the trench, kind of scribbling with charcoal and noting down each layer as it happens under the watchful eye of. I mean, they're wearing master's robes, and they certainly have the bearing of an Ordo master. And as you kind of approach and peer over, he kind of turns and fixes some quite piercing grey eyes on you. And sees you kind of look. He visibly sees you making the connection of like why they need to dig, why this mound of crap is here that they need to dig down through. And he says, "Has my grandson brought someone actually interested in the careful process of excavation?"
Yeah, in the excavation, at least, it seems a lot of care to be going through to get through some detritus. Would you not be more interested in what's under it?
He suddenly seems to become instantly kind of less interested in you, but he does answer you. The purpose, my dear man, is that if one simply lifts artifacts and treasures from the earth, as I'm sure you have some familiarity with, one is less able to verify their provenance. The order in which they are located in the earth is an indicator of age, purpose of deposit, and relation to other findings.
That. I apologize for my ignorance. That makes much more sense. How far back in time has that pile taken you so far?
It is difficult to establish at this stage, but I would say no further currently than 12 centuries.
The structure itself is at least 1,200 years old.
Considerably older.
Is there is this the limit of the complex beneath the ground? Normally when we go beneath Davakar, we tend to find caves upon caves and crevices behind crevices.
There is another level. It has been explored, but not excavated. It is, and he fixes you with a bit of a glance, off limits.
Very exciting. Oh, trust me, I try to avoid going underneath Davakar unless extreme need requires it. Or in this case, idle curiosity, I must admit.
De Gesto snorts with some quiet amusement at you saying that you don't like to go under the ground. Which is true, but, he considers that kind of ironic. Yeah.
I don't think I've any other specific questions. I can't think of...
No, that's fair enough. You probably don't have that much interest in talking archaeology with a slightly grumpy Ordo Magica master. That's fair enough. Who would? Me.
He's certainly no Tony Robinson.
I will end you. So there we go. Is there anything more that anyone wants to you can do as many circuits of the place as you want? The only additional things you find is that each corner of this level has an opening, presumably down to the level below. Each of them is kind of covered with layers of kind of linen cloth, kind of that act not as actual barriers in any serious way, obviously, but you presumably stop things from falling down the shafts just casually. But there's nothing else to be found. It seems to have been, if you'd arrived at this place to search it for treasure, you would almost immediately leave again because it's clearly been picked over comprehensively, and now they are digging in the dirt to find fragments.
I think Askra is pretty keen to leave and get on our way. Probably hurry the others along as far as they need it.
I think we've seen everything that we can see without causing a scene.
Sure, absolutely. And Domagoy, for his part, is happy to guide you back out again. He leads you to the rope ladders and kind of... during none of this, by the way, has Pyramai even looked at you.
Good.
He leads you kind of up the rope ladders and up to the surface and says, well, that was, I suppose, somewhat of a distraction. I'm technically on guard duty, so I should go back. Have all of Prios's luck in your travels to the north. I hope that you come back less battered and wounded than the Black Cloaks and that ogre fellow and his rather unpleasant-looking companions.
How long were the Black Cloaks away from here? When do they leave? When do they get back?
I'd say a little over a week.
Okay.
To hear tell of it, I'd say Far Maroon is maybe 3 or 4 days travel. If you hit that swamp and circle of it, from what I hear, you can't miss it.
It's good to know. You've been very, very helpful. Thank you.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
You've alleviated my boredom for an hour or so. That is payment enough.
You take care now. There have been some significant changes in the politic beyond the forest.
There have?
There have armies raised, strife in the church, worse
Oh,
than usual.
yes, we've heard of those things. We'll be fine out here.
It's very far away from everything for now.
Don't I
Thank
know
you
it?
for your help. For my part, I will ask Prios if he would consider furnishing you with some new discovery here that livens this place up a little.
Prios, I hope not. That would mean I have to stay.
You're hoping for boring so that you leave?
I should leave
That-
anyway within a couple of months.
Then I will ask Prios for that for you.
I appreciate this. Gentlemen, milady, he sketches you a bow, which is like so far forward, kind of one of his feet lifts off the ground and one of his hands kind of scuffs the turf in a kind of very overly elaborate parody of a noble's bow, and then he wanders back towards the longhouses.
Oh, I hope he survives.
De Gesto kind of pats his chest and says, "Funny little prick. Shall we be off?"
I see no reason not to.
3 days travel ahead of us. No time to spare.
Okay.
Goodness knows how much this is going to change in the next 24 hours. Let's get a move on.
You gather Revelia and the other fortune hunting companions, gather your goods, and find near actually like the foundations of where they've started to build a much more modest sun temple in which to worship. You find a sort of rough beaten, like a hunter's trail that looks to lead somewhat towards the north, and you gird yourselves and start striding in that direction. And it's a bit early for us. We all normally go over on these, but that seems like a good point to stop it. And I don't have anything else that wouldn't take ages. So we will wrap up the session there, a bit of a shorter one for us. So if you've got any comments or questions, please throw them into chat and we will have a look at them very soon. But first, a bit more promo. If you check down below, there's YouTube and Twitch links. You're watching on one, please check out the other. Twitch is where we stream live. YouTube is where all of our VODs are. If you want to watch everything we've done, all of our archives are all on there. Lots of campaigns, one-shots, roundtable discussions, all sorts of stuff on there. Something for everyone, I think, as long as you like TTRPG actual plays. Otherwise, you're fucked. We also have links below to social media, Patreon and Discord. We run 2 campaigns weekly currently. Mondays is Vason with Johnny and the Monday Crew. Wednesdays is, of course, this, Symbaroum. We also run one-shots on a monthly basis. March has none, but April will have 2. So April the 1st sees a return to Dungeon World with Pierre and Holly and this guy over here and that guy down there. And there'll be another one shot in April. Haven't locked that one down yet. Probably me running it. I don't know what I'm going to do. So who knows? That will be a surprise to everyone, including me. Yeah. All right. Comments, questions, stuff, things. What do we got? Steve, and it was in the forest is a fairly safe segue in Symbaroum. It's true. It's very true. There is an overabundance of forest scenes in Symbaroum. It's like the last third of Return of the Jedi.
We are doing more forest stuff now, which is nice.
Yeah, we are. Don't kick food. Go goblin on him, as in punching the balls.
Yeah, this was the Pyramite and Tom showdown.
Yeah. What's that called? Did we find this out on stream? We did, right? That literally the term for being punched in the balls in the world of Symbaroum is it called like a goblin kiss or something like that?
Something like that. It's under like
it's in the dirty fighting.
fighting.
Yeah. It's amazing. It is amazing. There we go. On Pyramide, yeah. I'm just in my head now. I have like Anton, like kind of Johnny Caging, like split leg down, just punching Father Pyramide in the balls, which I would have enjoyed, but not nearly as much as enjoying Mike rolling to see if he could do that, and the results of what would happen after when he failed.
It would have been
Just Anton lying screaming with a dislocated hip and crushed testicles. Oh god, the things dreams are made of.
It would have been a hell of a moment to throw out the initiative order, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Turns out Pyramai has all the early initiative and he just beats Anton to death in front of you before you can step in.
It's under cheap shots, and a gutter kiss is a headbutt,
right?
And a goblin squeeze is a kick to the groin.
It's a kick to the groin. Okay.
Which also deals 1d6 as opposed to the usual 1d4 for unarmed combat.
I'm going to have to go back and check out the VODs and find out whether we applied that rule at the time. Also,
no, it wasn't it wasn't using that ability, so it's fine.
Right.
It was just an actual goblin.
It's actually just kicking him in the nuts.
Yeah, it was just an actual
regardless
goblin.
of whether there was a name for it.
Yeah, it was an actual goblin punching an actual priest in the actual balls.
Kudos to Fria Ligan, though, that they anticipated that situation, named it, and gave it rules. Like,
well, I've got a bit of influence, you know. Like, what can I say? I saw it coming years ago in Swedish, and then
oh, you're writing this game Symbaroum. What about this rule?
And I thought in a few years' time, this is really going to pay off.
Yeah.
When I make Mike look like a fool.
They didn't print the rules about buffets, though, did they?
They're in the errata.
Right.
Next.
More role-playing games need rules about getting kicked in the. I can't finish the sentence.
Stephen, extreme need or idle curiosity is a fantastic motto to live by. I can't even remember what that line was.
That was Theo listing the
good
reasons.
Title for my autobiography as well.
I only ever go underground if there is extreme need, or because of idle curiosity, which is just
only in the direst circumstances, or just fancy it.
Yeah, it's just got all the bases covered there, right?
Yeah,
I think that sums up Sia's characters. Like, I'm never gonna go into Davokar or do anything risky or search for any treasure or go to any ruins ever.
Oh, there's a whole
except for all except if I want to. I mean,
unless someone near me goes, oh, go on. Yeah. Don't kick food. How much XP to make Baramo a boon? I did answer this. Not enough XP in the campaign. Right. Can we actually answer this? Because there was someone else, and I saw John Starr it saying what was it? Something like he's so well loved or something like that. Or maybe you shouldn't have made Baramo so likable. Did I? I literally just played him like the most anonymous NPC going like, oh yes, Father Anton, I can tell you this. Like literally a mindless fucking info drone.
He's relatable.
If you like Baramo more than Domagoy, there's something wrong with you.
He has a horrible
an NPC with an actual personality.
Yeah.
Baramo might as well be made of soft cardboard.
Baramo is made from metatext.
He's not human.
But Matt,
shattering people's dreams here, Matt.
Speaking as a person who only exists to provide exposition for more important people, I just relate to him. You know?
Fair enough.
Also,
look, I gave him the warm farewell there, and I gave him the talking with Father Anton.
I think in a way we're all Baramo.
I'm becoming more and more convinced that we're going to find Matt is going to make us find Baramo's horribly mangled corpse as we're trekking back to Carvosti.
If Baramo gets killed off stream, it's the end of this Let's Play. I'll tell you.
I do understand where Matt's coming from. However, the minute that Matt started to get annoyed about Baramo is the very moment that my love for Baramo increased tenfold.
It's great to have such respect. That's all I'll say. It's great to have such respect.
It was
such gratitude for the work I put in on every character other than Baramo.
The exact moment that I knew that Baramo was going to become just so well loved was when Mike pressed you for Baramo's surname and you responded "fuck off," and it was like Baramo, fuck off. That was it.
it's
Yeah.
like applicable to current circumstances on camera. It's like when you buy a cat a bed, and you got the fancy bed, and then you got the cardboard box. Baramo is the
Yeah.
cardboard box.
Yes. Oh my god, this cat is. Oh my god. The worst little cat. Ah! Oh my god. Okay, we're going on the shoulder. We're pirating it. Okay. Next.
It's all just cats and Baramo from here on out.
Look, if he likes Beramo, that should tell you something about your own preferences. Because he is an awkward little shit. So, an awkward, loved little shit before anyone complains.
With great taste in RPG characters.
Look, this cat has no opinion on anything other than food and me. So, if I say he doesn't like Beramo, he doesn't like Beramo. He follows my lead, you know?
Almost like a NPC of some sort.
Don't listen to it.
Non-player cat.
Non-player cat. Yeah. That's about accurate. So is there literally there is nothing but Beramo and cat chat?
It's pretty much just Baramo.
Beramo and cat chat. That's all fine. That's all fine.
Steve and Don't Kick Food are suggesting that Baramo will die on the way back to his home planet.
He is my Poochie. He's absolutely my Poochie. No, because Poochie was actively annoying, whereas Beramo is nothing. Beramo is nothing. I think I'm letting him get to me too much. So, thank you for watching. Thank you for playing. And please join us next week. Who knows? There might be more Beramo. I will officially say that unless something changes, how to phrase this? I think the more we push for Beramo as a regular non-player character, the more likely I am to reintroduce Blackhawk with increasing frequency. Increasing frequency.
You could just make them like best friends for some reason, so we can only get one with the other one.
Beramo and Blackhawk.
Yeah. Best buds.
The
buddy partner comedy everyone wants.
The reason that Blackhawk was so bad was because of the Blackhawk F&A sort of bubbling sexual tension, which made that incredibly awkward.
Yeah, but I mean, they would make a good pairing because Blackhawk is like, pretty much he's a drunken, flirty, slightly annoying minstrel who turns up at the most inopportune times and might cause chaos or flirt with someone or whatever. And Beramo is a man.
I think you just described the plot of The Witcher. I think they should just set up shop together as like creators of bronze spears.
Yeah, absolutely. And Blackhawk can kind of like make the backstory for them and sing about it and create that legend. And Beramo can stand slightly to one side doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, Beramo can also be there.
Beramo is also there. No one can ever say he doesn't exist conceptually.
That's one of my favorite things about him.
Is his technical abstract existence. Yeah, sure.
His sort of imagined presence.
But I realize the more I'm saying this, the more I'm making a complete rod for my own back.
This is your legacy.
It's the worst thing Mike has ever said to me. And on that note, thanks everyone. We will be back next week with more Symbaroum. Join us then. Until then, take care and stay safe. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye.